That concludes the questioning. However, we have had a couple of requests for a second round, and so I will go with a brief 3-minute second round.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Following up on, I thought, Senator Van Hollen's very good line of questioning that about your rather curious statement that you're following the law, but you're not following the law in the one case, but you are in the other. I don't entirely get that, but let me take it a different way. In your written testimony, you state that terms and conditions attached to the free solutions that Equifax offered included an arbitration clause. You said this provision, the forced arbitration clause, was never, in this case, intended to apply, and you were informed the clause was included. Apparently, it was sent out to your customers, and you didn't know it was in there. The clause, as customers often don't know these forced arbitration clauses are in there, the fine print, and I assume you are more sophisticated in these financial instruments and transactions than most of your customers, but leave that alone. You were informed the clause was included because it was, quote, your words, essentially cut and pasted from a different Equifax offering. So this inadvertent error could have prevented, if not unearthed, and then protested, then pushed back, and you dropped it. This inadvertent error could have prevented 145 million victims from pursuing their legal rights in court. So make that case again. Your company failed by allowing this breach of 145 million victims. You sent out a restitution to them with forced arbitration. You backed off the forced arbitration. So don't you think fundamentally it's unfair that the ability of 145 million Americans to seek justice in court could have been taken away simply by a cut and paste job? I mean, doesn't that show how unfair forced arbitration is to customers?
Senator, to be specific to this particular issue, it was an error, as you noted. Mm-hmm. We were made aware of the error, and I believe within 24 hours, removed that clause. It was never intended to be a clause applied to the breach.
But that wasn't really the question. So, first of all, you say it was an error. I guess I believe that it was an error, although your company has given us cause to not believe some other things. But doesn't that show how unfair forced arbitration is? You didn't answer that question. If this inadvertent error, this cut and paste error, had taken away forced arbitration on 145 million Americans, doesn't that show how unfair forced arbitration is?
I have no opinion on that.
But you use forced arbitration in other cases.
Correct.
So you must not think so it's unfair to those 145 million in that circumstance, but it's not unfair to customers in other circumstances on whom you oppose forced arbitration.
Again, I go back, Senator, it was never the intent for us to have that arbitration clause in the breach service itself.
Yeah, and I'll close, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate your indulgence. I just can't understand why you think for those 145 million in that case that forced arbitration is unfair, but in other uses in your company you seem to think it's fair. It just puzzles me.
Senator Heitkamp.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.